Hey everyone. I just want to introduce you to a new series that I am joining. Tisa invited me to join her on a Use Our Scraps series. And I think it's called From the Scrap Bin. And this is my scrap bin of shame. Let me see if I can lift it up here. This is all scraps. It's scraps of all different shapes and sizes. Scraps that I've saved probably for over a year. And the idea is that we make a project where our core paper is from the scrap bin. We can use other embellishments. We can use a base piece of paper if we need to. But the idea is that we find different and unique ways to use our scraps and to use that so that we stop just having a bin of scrap paper. I know we're not alone. I know we're not the only ones. So I really appreciate Tisa letting me join this particular hop, and I'm going to show you what I did for my first project.
I just want to walk you through the process. This isn't going to be too long, but the first thing I did was take that scrap bin and go through it. And I knew I was going to make a tag book. And that's what I decided to do, is to make a tag book. I had those tags you saw on the left there, the die cuts from scrapbook.com. And I needed to do two things. I needed to make sure that all the paper was two-sided and that it was big enough to fit on that tag, because I was going to use one of the bigger size of tags. So I started looking through my scrap bin and I started just pulling papers, and you'll see as I start pulling them, I noticed that I have quite a few just kind of in my scrap bin of these teals and greens and blues. And what I end up doing is kind of picking an assortment of the teals and greens and blues. I pick a few other ones. You'll see those kind of tie-dye looking mixed media paper there. And I'm going to go with a cohesive color story. Now, one of the things that I think, if you're going to use a bunch of scraps, and for me, I'm going to use a whole bunch. I'm going to use, I think, 7 pieces of paper here. One of the things you need to do is decide if you're going to pick a color story. And for me, I picked kind of a monotone, all of a teal greens, and that helps you be cohesive while using a whole bunch of different lines and a whole bunch of different papers. So that's what I did here, is I picked a whole bunch of greens. So you can see here I've got that tag, and now I'm going to narrow down even more because I picked out the first set of papers, and now I'm going to go through these, and I'm picking them and I'm saying, okay, this doesn't fit the color scheme, this isn't two-sided, and I narrow it down to 8 pieces of paper that will fit on the tag, are two-sided, and that go with the color scheme. I then take those individual pieces of paper and I'm going to just run them through my Cuttlebug. It's a great way to make a book, to make a gift for somebody. These scrapbook.com large nesting dies come in this tag shape, and it is something that I have used nonstop. The Cuttlebug is really like the hero of this project. I love my Cuttlebug. I know they don't make them anymore. When this thing stops working, I don't know what I'm going to do. Um, but I'm not going to make you watch me cut all of these. I'm just going to show you what they end up looking like. But basically, I cut out all the different papers, and I ended up with a set of tags that I can put together in a tag book. So there's the last one, and then here are all the different papers. So as you can see here, it's all kind of the same color story. It's some greens, some blues. I've got some darker ones. And basically what I'm going to do next is pick out 12 selfies. And I went through my phone and I looked for each month and I picked a selfie that had a story for what happened that month. And I am cutting them 2 sizes down of a tag so that I don't interfere with the hole in the tag. And I'm just going through, I sized the particular die I chose was so that it sized a 4x6. So if I printed them in 4x6, I could cut out the particular tag from them. So I printed 12 photos at 4x6, and then I am running them through my Cuttlebug. It's a little bit harder because it's photo paper, but once again, Cuttlebug works just fine. And now I've got 12 pages of stories to tell for my tag book. So I put them together, and now I'm going to kind of just lay them out. I'm going to make sure they fit, make sure I have them in the right order, see if there's anything I want to change. And I end up kind of moving a couple of things around, but in general, it's just putting the photos on the pages and making sure it works. So I've got all the photos, I've got all the paper, and now I want to be able to tell the story. So what I did is I measured a stamp I have from L Studios. It's right there, and I wanted to do the same kind of label on each of the photos, and it was 1 inch by 1 inch, or I thought it was 1 inch by 1 inch. And you're going to see I stamped that down, and at first I was going to say, oh, it's not that bad. And then on some of them, it was that bad. It was covering it up. So then I had to resize the journaling to make it smaller. I ended up printing that journaling 3 times. It's just on regular cardstock. It's not on photo paper, so it didn't bother me too much. But sometimes it's just kind of, hit or miss. If I had measured a little bit better, maybe I could have made the squares of text better. But basically, that's what I did is I printed it out. I stamped this L Studio label around it, and then I'm going to fussy cut. And, that's just kind of the project is finding a way to be cohesive. So on every one of these 12, it's a different background paper. Some of them are black and white, some of them are colored. But what I wanted to do is have some cohesive elements. And I think that's important when you're using scraps and when you're making mini albums is, figure out what you're going to do that's cohesive in it. So for me, the cohesion was color story. Everything's kind of the green, even this ink that I'm using to print this out. So the color story, the fact that I'm using selfies, and I think I was supposed to delete this section, but we'll sit here and watch it anyway. The fact that I'm using the same color story, the fact that I'm using selfies, the fact that I'm using the same kind of journaling and the square labels, these are all things that I wanted to do to make it cohesive. So I even had some old Martha Stewart labels that were just from a office supply store, and they were in that same mint green. And I took the Becky Higgins Project Life January through December labels, and I put them on the tabs. See, you see the December one there, and they're the same color story, so they're that mint green. So I just added those, and then once again, now I've got labels for each month. Now because they're old, they didn't have stick, and then I tried to use my scotch, my ATG, and it still didn't stick. So instead I just got my stapler out, my tiny attacher, and I just put some staples in every one of them. So you do what you got to do to make it work. So once again, so there's cohesion, there's the color, there's all the labels look the same, and I'm using my stash still. So it's not quite, my scrap paper, but it's still my stash. It's labels that I've just had sitting around for years that I didn't use. So, when you're doing this scrap bin project, think about ways you can use, your stash, ways you can put things together. And like I said, the key is to have some cohesion and have everything, work together to make the project look like it's the same project. So as I did this, I just want to say thank you again to Tisa for letting me be a part of this. You're kind of seeing my project and how it works. I think you're going to see a lot of different ideas in the people below. I think it's going to be fun to see all the different ways people do this project. I am going to actually have a walkthrough after this of the project and how it came together. So I'm going to stop talking now and kind of go to that. But thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, so here is my final project. I know that the lighting was kind of bad in some of that because I was working at night, but here's my final project. So I did a tag book for a year in review, and every one of these pages is a scrap piece of paper. The die cut here, Life in Pictures, was from scraps. I did use one solid piece of black cardstock to get the black, but if I had had black scraps, and I might actually have had it in the bottom, I could have used that as well. So here is the book. So I have Life in Pictures, I have an old die cut, and I also purposely tried to pull things from my stash of embellishments and stuff that I haven't used in a while. So this particular camera is from an old Project Life kit. So then, as you saw, I took one selfie for every day, one selfie for every month. I put the journaling in Adobe, and excuse me, this is how it turned out. I did try to keep with the same color scheme. So we have January, February, March. This was when we had our first flowers. April was when we did our first convertible drive. May is when we drove cross country to pick my daughter up to move her here. June was one of the many times we got to just go to the beach, and it never happens, but it's empty because of COVID. So it was kind of nice actually to see the beach empty. July 4th, just us and our red, white, and blue. August and the sunflowers. The sunflowers are my favorite flower, so I love going to sunflower mazes. September, we did an apple farm and picked some apples. October, just talking about Halloween. One of the mini Snapchats filters. November, just kind of going back to one of our local breweries. Supporting local became a big thing for us in 2020, as I'm sure it did a lot of you. And then December, telling kind of the story of snow. We had snow in December, which was amazing. And then goodbye 2020. I did use these cameras. So now the cameras are also part of my stash, and that they came from a piece of Amy Tan paper. And I fussy cut that paper, so it was part of my, it was also part of my stash bin or my scrap bin. So even the embellishments you can get from your scrap bin. So this was kind of a quick project for using my scraps. It's my first one. I'm interested to see how we all take the approach of using our scraps. I'm hoping that, you know, over the next 6 months or so, you'll see a lot of different things from all of us. Please go down and click the links to the other ladies that joined us. And thank you so much for watching. And next month, I think I'm going to back a cut file. So I'll see you then. Bye-bye.